Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And we had a big week, although I think it was kind of manufactured. I'm going to talk about college first, because we have the two big heavy hitters, the ACC investigation and then the Michigan thing that came back out. I want to hit on the Michigan one first, just because I'm getting a lot of messages about it. So basically, Michigan received in December their draft of like the allegations from the Connor Stallions thing, right? And it's kind of come out over time that the NCAA, this is where the fair and square thing came from. Michigan got it in December. A lot of people were complaining, like, should they have been in the playoffs, whatever. The Connor Stallions thing is the biggest thing in the notice of allegations, right? It's the one that everyone was hammering about. And I sent it to you, Matt, because they did a Freedom of Information Act request. Got it. Connor Stallions, his involvement is a level 2 in like allegation. Level 2 isn't the highest. Level 1's the highest. So for a level 2 from a staffer, this pretty much cleared the rest of the team. It came out with this, that the NCAA said that they went through all the phone records and everything, and they didn't have any connection to Connor Stallions. Like, they took Stallions' phone, went through everything. No other coach is seemingly connected to it. It's only a level 2 because, and it was only a level 2 and not lower, because they did say in it that he was confirmed to be the guy on the Central Michigan sideline, which is another gigantic thing, right? Because to me, they made it seem like Central Michigan knew about it, and that's how he got all the gear. This could be a coincidence, but Central Michigan just fired their quarterbacks coach, I think, or someone before this came out. So I'm assuming that he was the one that worked with Connor Stallions. And if you're following along to our show, I've kind of laid it out. I think what really happened, and I'm surprised that major media isn't really picking up on this. Connor Stallions was kind of starting to do his own side scouting company, right? He starts reaching out to other teams saying like, hey, I can help you guys, whatever. They played Michigan State. He's been scouting Michigan State for years. He says like, I can help you guys. They say, all right, cool, let's hook it up. Give him gear. He goes down on the sideline. It's not against the rules, right? Because I think the NCAA hasn't said anything on this. ESPN hasn't said anything on it. But if you look at the way it goes right now, if he's working for Central Michigan, even though he's scouting a opponent of Michigan's later, I don't think Michigan can get in trouble for that, right? Because he's actively working a different game. At least that's how the rule is written. Because no one has said that the Connor Stallions thing from this new notice came out. If you noticed, Matt, that's not the story anymore. So I think they've seen that Michigan, the Connor Stallions thing probably isn't going to amount to anything. And it looks like I lost Matt here for a sec. Now, Connor Stallions is doing what are they doing? A Netflix documentary called Untold, where he's supposed to come out and tell his side of the story. I really don't think anything's going to come of that either, just because I really don't think he's going to come out and say anything negatively about Michigan or whatever, because if from his perspective, if he really wants to continue with his side business as being a scout or whatever, you can't throw Michigan under the bus. If he gets cleared of all other wrongdoing, and it's really because he was only on the sideline of another game, he could just come back and kind of roll with it and say, hey, what can I do going forward to make sure that this doesn't happen again? But I'm not sure, like, any team's going to touch him right now because of the show cause or whatever. Like that's the one thing right now that I'm not 100% sure on. Because if another team doesn't want to touch him, or like say, if he's trying to move it to that next level, like right now he could be taking his job of scouting and potentially moving it to the NFL. The NFL has nothing to do with the NCAA. So he's not going to get in trouble there at all. It really just comes down to, is the NCAA going to keep him from doing any scouting in the future? And honestly, if he really only just is a Michigan fan, maybe he doesn't care at all anyway. And this is just the end of it. He gets his paid day from Netflix. He comes out, defends himself against the NCAA. I know Harbaugh kind of came out this week. He's defending himself against the NCAA, where he's saying that he's never cheated and there's no connection to him to anything. So if that's actually in the letter, and his lawyer put out that the NCAA, even after he left Michigan, was still asking for personal type devices from Harbaugh to try to connect him to any allegation, and they couldn't do it. They didn't answer it. He couldn't get anything together. So I don't know how much further it's going to go. They said that Sharon Moore was named in it as part of a recruiting violation. I'll be honest, I don't know if that's a separate recruiting violation or the one that he was already suspended for in September. Because he was suspended for one game for the Burgergate one. And then it looked like they brought up the Burgergate thing again, ESPN in their article. So if he did, then he's already been suspended for that, and it's not a big deal. But the misleading headline of them saying, Michigan, they could get penalized for this. In all honesty, at this point, it's highly unlikely. The only level 1 violation in the entire thing was for Harbaugh not cooperating and him calling out the NCAA in public. He's now in the NFL, so he can kind of speak out against him if he wants. And I'm wondering if they're going to go ahead and add some additional details or whatever just to try to dig at him a little bit more. But in all honesty, I would be highly surprised if Harbaugh ever came back to college coaching. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I don't think he cares. They're not going to give, I don't think they're going to give a bull ban because Harbaugh didn't cooperate with the investigation. The only thing, like Sharon Moore might get, they're not going to suspend him again, I don't think. He already sat a game out last year. I think the entire case is kind of closed at this point. The rumor's been thrown around that they're going to try to do a monetary penalty maybe for kind of like the amount of time that the NCAA had to spend on it, but at this point, I don't know. I don't think they're going to penalize the team. I don't think Harbaugh's going to come back to the NCAA, so I don't think he cares. I think he's going to keep leaking stuff through his lawyer. We'll get more information as he does that, and he's going to do everything in his power, I think, to clear his name. A lot of people were saying that Harbaugh was lying at that press conference. I think that's only going to eat at him, because if he didn't really know, then he didn't really know. He seems like the kind of guy that would know, right? He's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And he's kind of careful with his words, too. I don't think he would say that he's never lied or never cheated if they had proof of that. Because that's my thing. People keep saying he had to cheat because he wasn't winning it. He wasn't winning as a coach, but he won everywhere he's been. He's won with the 49ers. If he comes out with the Chargers and they win the Super Bowl in like a year or two, I think the cheating scandal at Michigan, I think it's completely forgotten because they realize that he cleared his name. Heck, if they come out this year and win the AFC West, I'll say that he's pretty much vindicated. Right? Unless Ohio State fans really think that he has been scouting Chargers opponents for the past 3 years too. Right? I know I lost you there for a bit, but basically there's nothing new in this. So I don't think anything's going to really happen to Michigan. I think a lot of rival fans are going to be disappointed. The one thing that I have noticed, Matt, doing some research before the show today, it seems like only fans of the big dogs now are upset about this. Like I've seen fans from smaller teams like Indiana saying like, give me a break. Like they didn't really cheat. Like it's been proven by them beating like Bama and them and they won without their head coach. And they won like 4 games without him, the biggest games of the year. So I think a lot of the smaller fans have quieted down. The only ones I see are Michigan State fans and Ohio State fans, of course, Notre Dame fans for some reason, and then a lot of Georgia and Bama fans are really starting to perk up. And it's crazy because I saw a lot of Clemson fans defending it, saying like, look, there's no way he's been cheating like in every step of his career. Like he won at Stanford, guys. Like it just seems like sour grapes at this point that the NCAA said he had no connection to Stalions. Stallion Sting wasn't even anywhere close to a top level cheating thing. He was just scouting or whatever. And now watch Central Michigan get killed with a penalty, right? Although I don't think they did anything wrong. I told you a year ago whenever this happened, I don't think it's against the rule for a coach to be hired by 2 different teams in 2 different conferences, right?
Yeah, but that's such a
weird thing to do, but he's such a low-level guy that like the rest of the team probably didn't really know. It was a buddy that he coached with, the guy that got fired or whatever, used to coach at Michigan. He was probably a buddy with them. It would probably be like if I started coaching down here and then like I'm like, hey, you're coaching, why don't you come down, like you have a bye week, come down and coach with me for a weekend. That's kind of what it seemed like. Like not a big deal. He did wear a disguise, which is weird. I think if he didn't wear the disguise, it wouldn't have been blown out of proportion, right? But I guess we'll see when his Netflix thing comes out.
Yeah, I mean, the coaches can be really finicky with their information, and I would just find it hard to believe that he's coaching at Michigan and Harbaugh would be okay with him going to Central Michigan to help coach there unless there's some kind of ulterior motive. Like that just seems like his use for the Michigan program would have been so much different. And I feel like when you look at the record with Stallions compared to without and the supposed information, it's the same type of breakdown as when you had Belichick's record with Brady versus without. It was like there's something extra that's going on with him there.
Oh, that's not true, dude. Connor Stallions has been working there since 2014.
But the record's better with him there.
He was there when Hoke was there. He was on the sideline at the game when I was at the game when we lost to Minnesota. And he put the concussed quarterback back in. There's a picture of him with the fans after. I think you're just reading what ESPN's trying to stir up. I don't think Harbaugh knew that he went to the game. I think that's why he wore the disguise, to be honest. Because I don't think Harbaugh would have cleared that, to your point. That's why I think everything points to him just being a rogue actor, right? Starting to get his sting off. Because the Michigan bump that everyone talks about, like, oh, with Stallions, like, without him, they won the national championship without him, Matt.
Well, after he'd already gotten all of his scouting reports in.
Oh, yeah, because, everyone was scouting Washington. They're a known playoff contender, bro. Because there's zero chance they were scouting that far ahead for Washington because everyone kept saying Oregon was not going to lose to them twice. That's how I know that's why I think everyone else threw it out. You can say whatever you want, but there's no way that on a shoestring budget that he had, that he was scouting Washington. And they decimated Washington. Like, that was a complete shutdown without him.
Yeah. I will.
Because everyone kept saying that there's no way they're going to shut down Washington's offense. Matt, they scored, 2 touchdowns? That was like the highest scoring offense in the country last year, or one of them. It's 2 touchdowns. Like, you can't say that, oh, yeah, they were awesome. They were so bad without him. Because that's what the Michigan State fans say, but then they lost like 49-0 last year after he was suspended. And then Penn State said the same thing. And then they couldn't stop him. The only one that keeps it alive is like Ohio State. But my theory on the Ohio State thing is, I think that they're half in, if this makes any sense, because I think all the Big Ten schools are like this. And this is probably going to piss a lot of people off. Penn State included, because Penn State, to me, if you can follow what I'm saying, you'll agree with me. I think their fans want to win just enough, right? Ohio State needs to be able to win the Big Ten. They don't really want to go all in with NIL because they know how expensive it's going to be to try to win a national championship. That's why I think Ohio State's the only school that keeps leaking their number of how much they're paying for NIL. It's because they want their fans to stay happy when they don't win the national championship, right? So they can look back and say, hey, bro, we've been telling you we've spent $20 million on this team. Like, that's the best money team, like the best money we could have spent, the best team we could have got. But I think it's because they know that they don't want to go above and beyond. They don't want to share revenue like Harbaugh's been saying that he wanted, because that cuts out their bottom line. So the rest of the Big Ten schools, like the Indianas, they just want to milk the money from the TV networks or whatever. They don't care. When Harbaugh came in, he was very clear the last couple of years that his goal was to win the national championship. And there hasn't been a coach in the Big Ten since Urban Meyer that had that same goal, realistically. Because you can tell the way Ryan Day talks, he's not serious about it. Like, he always like kind of beats around the bush when he's talking about winning the Big Ten, or like, oh, we're tough. Like, he always brings up like these tough and stuff. Like, it's not like, no, we're training like we're going to win the national championship. No, only two coaches in the past decade in the Big Ten have said that, and that's Urban and Jim Harbaugh. And they both actually did end up winning it. The rest of the Big Ten, I'm pretty sure, and this goes to basketball too, they just want to be able to make it, get their TV money. As long as they're in the discussion, that's more TV money for them. They don't care. I think Michigan winning it crushed Ohio State, because now they're like, we have to start spending more because our rival just won. I think they would have been fine even if they kept losing to Michigan. Like, they've lost about 3 in a row. They pretend like they're upset, but I think they're deep down, I think they're really scared that what happens if they lose again, because like they're at the point where they can't get rid of Ryan Day. They have to think about it and say, the conference is getting bigger. We now have more competition at the top. Our coach barely loses. Just because our rival won a national championship, like, we can't fire this guy. The only way they can go, Matt, is down.
Yeah, but I mean, the boosters can be really finicky, and if the standard in your rivalry is beating Michigan and you can't do it, that can be enough to get a guy fired or to have him keep his job. And if they're not happy with that, then, you know, they'll start pulling money. And as soon as that money train goes, then you're really screwed.
Well, that's why the story shifting to Sharon Moore, to me, doesn't make sense. Because let's be honest, nobody knows who he is, right? How many people do you think know who Michigan's coach is right now? Not that many. And that's a Michigan guy telling you. Like, I'm not being naive and saying like, oh, everyone knows who he is. They might have known his name, but I'll be honest, Connor Steins is more popular than Sherrod Moore. Not a lot of people know who that is, if I'm being honest. So for them trying to shift the ESPN story to like, oh, it's Sherrod Moore, just seems like more Big Ten bullshit, where they use the sportsmanship thing, which I get that. You had a coach go and scout for a totally different team. Yeah, against sportsmanship, you suspended Harbaugh. But there's nothing really else they can do. Right now, Ohio State's out of excuses where if they spend all their $20 million or whatever they're saying they spent, if Oregon wins the Big Ten, and I don't even think if Michigan has to do it, like if a different Big Ten team wins a national championship, like I think that's so much heat on Ryan Day that it has to be impossible where you're handed a top 1 or 2 team every year, and yet you're not getting it done. Like that, this will be what, year 4 in a row? that he's won nothing if a different team wins it. They could beat Michigan, but I honestly think that their expectations have to be higher, even though they're not saying it.
Well, I was even thinking with bringing in Chip Kelly, they almost have themselves a get out of jail pass this year.
Where they make Chip Kelly the coach?
Well, I don't think they make Chip Kelly the coach, but I feel like if they do run into any conflict, they have the out of, well, we had a new coordinator. It's going to take time to adjust to the system, to get his terminology and everything in place. They're going to need at least 2 or 3 years. Then maybe that buys them time. And I don't think that it's going to bite him as hard if he can win out, with the exception of the Michigan game, and get Ohio State into the playoffs. I think that keeps some of the dogs at bay, because part of the issue is if you have the 4-team format and you're not getting into the playoffs and your rival is, that's going to wear on boosters quick.
Well, see, the team playoff, that's where I'm wondering if they just want to be content making the playoff, kind of like in basketball. I mean, obviously Ohio State has a bigger impression of themselves in football, and I don't think they would be content with whatever basketball's doing. But I do think they would be content with having, like when Beeline was Michigan's basketball coach and it was like, hey, they're runner-up a couple years. I think they'd be like, that would be over the moon for them. And that's where, like, I'm surprised that like a lot of Georgia fans were coming and like attacking Michigan over the Stallions thing, because it really didn't matter. Like, Georgia pasted Michigan the first year in the playoffs when the Stallions was supposed to be like at the top, and then Georgia has their own issues with like paying players over the top. And I really think that it's kind of just like throwing stones at glass houses now, where like Ohio State's like, these guys can't be cheating, right? I talked in the pre-show about how back in the 90s they were fixing grades for guys like Andy Katzenmoyer or whatever, guys that were failing out and they put them in their AIDS class, gave them an easy A. So like, how's that not cheating? Right? It's kind of like the UNC thing where they had the fake classes to keep their guys eligible for basketball, knowing that they only need 5 of them, right? Like, I only need 5 of these dudes eligible. Who cares if they're taking real classes or not? As long as everyone can take that AIDS class, Matt, they're good. And then like that, the tattoo game, people keep saying like, oh, it's worse than when Ohio State guys were getting free tattoos, bro. It's like, okay. Like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, I don't care. I don't think like those old punishments or whatever. I didn't think the Big Ten should be punishing them either, because I guarantee that same stuff was happening in the SEC. That's what I've been saying the entire time. It seems like the Big Ten just shoots itself in the foot for no reason. The teams don't circle the wagon. Or like the conference doesn't. They're fine with throwing the sportsmanship clause at Harbaugh, not realizing that, hey, Harbaugh was bringing us a ton of ratings. Why the Big Ten kept going after him makes no sense. And to anyone that disagrees and says it like, oh, you're biased or whatever, the Big Ten in a game made up a penalty. They called it intention to deceive because Harbaugh had a guy flexed out by the sideline, which isn't illegal in any means. They were calling multiple made up penalties on Harbaugh all the time. All the time. You can't find another team in another conference that happens to. Anywhere. Find another instance of someone getting a penalty for intent to deceive. That's the entire purpose of a trick play, you dumbass. Like what's the official's job? To make sure that the guy declare, yes. Is he wide open? Yes. Whose fault is that? Not some made up penalty on Harbaugh, right? So if he subs a guy and a guy runs off the field, whoever was supposed to be covering that guy should be watching to see who's taking his place. If the guy just stands there on the hash mark or whatever, he should go out there with them, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense why they can make penalties up on Harbaugh for years. Giving him like warnings for whatever. Giving him like, I wonder, he probably had the most, personal fouls called on him for no reason. So why the Big Ten just goes after their own, I don't understand it. I don't. Is it because the other schools are jealous? Like at this point, I'm thinking that Michigan is basically the Yankees of college football, where everyone hates them, but they know they need them for money. So they just hope that they go like 8-4, right? Like we don't want them to get 3 wins because then people might tune out. But we need like a feisty Michigan. We just don't want them winning because we secretly hate them. That's probably how the Big Ten meetings go. That's why I thought it was a joke that like the AD for Michigan got that football award. It's like awesome, awesome, buddy. Let's wait until now. If he does get out of this allegation thing and they get no penalty, then yeah, give him 3 football awards because last year has been a complete shit show of just penalties coming around. But like I said, I did do my research, and it used to be a lot of teams were really pissed at it, but now the more information that comes out in Michigan's favor, it seems like a lot of fans just don't care anymore. And I think that's good for Michigan and is good for college football going forward. It's going to be like, because everyone keeps saying, oh, this title is going to be tainted for years. Not everyone. Ohio State fans say that. But if you think back to Reggie Bush's one, how is theirs not tainted anymore? Because NIL's like now they're giving him his Heisman back. Now it's legal to have helmet like discussions, so you don't even need to sign steal, right? That guy from Baylor that was caught stealing signs or scouting in person, he didn't even get suspended or whatever, right? So like,
Yeah.
There's already a precedent of nothing happening. It's just going to be funny that like when the penalties do come out, if they're all related to that COVID cheeseburger deal, I think people are going to realize what kind of bullshit this is. At least that's what, yeah, I mean, if you want to keep people going, people are going to stay biased against it. But like I said, Harbaugh's most likely going to be successful in the NFL. I just don't know if he can get over that Chiefs hump. But if he does win a Super Bowl, I think everyone except Ohio State fans and probably Michigan State fans will forget all about this alleged scheme of great proportions. But that's my thing.
I think it does mirror the approach that Pete Carroll had when he was at USC, because he had that run where USC was just crushing everyone. And it was almost like, well, the writing's on the wall. I better jump back to the NFL because all these sanctions are going to be coming down the pike. And like jump back and was able to turn things around at Seattle. And I kind of have that similar vibe right now with Harbaugh, where they drastically started to win more. And I mean, you said earlier in the year that this had to be a make or break year for him, and he was able to pull it out. That then, like, he jumps to the Chargers, and then you have all these alleged allegations come out of these different violations for the program.
Yeah, but now I don't even care. Like I'm now looking back at it, I'm assuming that the college coaches circled the wagons on Pete Carroll, and what he was doing, he probably didn't even have any idea anyway. Right? All he did was invite celebs down on the sideline. How does he know who's paying for Reggie Bush's house or whatever? Right? I honestly think that the college coaches don't want these NFL guys coming down and beating their shit in, for like lack of a better term. Because that's why I think the Big Ten, like Harbaugh lost a lot of close games his first couple years, where if he wins like 1 or 2 of them, they could be sneaking into the playoffs, right? All he has to do is like, it's like a JT Barrett stop short. Magically, they give him the first down, right? And magically, they don't have a replay of it. And it's like some random Ohio State ref that born and grew up an Ohio State fan. Shouldn't even been ref in the game. He was banned from it. He's there though, giving them the first down. And then they're like, oh, we don't know how that happened. Sorry, boys. It's like that. Like a couple of really close calls, like the blocked punt against Michigan State. Like, yeah, I know that wasn't like a ref job, but it was like a lot of like really close ones that I think really would have sped it around. The only bad year he had was the COVID year, but that was the year they kept telling him he wasn't allowed to practice. And then he got the cheeseburger thing. All the allegations are from the COVID year. Right? The worst year in program history, all of the cheating happened in the COVID year when they won 2 games. And then they had to shut down camp, and they only played 6 games that year. Everything else, No other year. No, there's no allegations from any other year. All the NCAA penalties are from that COVID year. And why? Because he was outspoken that year. He wanted to play. He said it was bullshit that they couldn't practice and do all this other stuff. He was calling him out. I guarantee that got him a target on his back. Guarantee. From the Big Ten leadership. Because remember, they were the ones doing the high horse saying like, oh, we can't play because COVID. And then once the money started clicking in for the SEC and the ACC, then they're like, oh, no, joke. We're back. Sorry you guys didn't get to practice or anything. And now you guys look like crap out there. But like, I think it's all kind of related. Like, if COVID wouldn't have happened, I don't think Harbaugh might have turned it around faster. He might not even have had, I mean, heck, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't go to younger coaches, right? That's the entire shift. They got rid of Don Brown. That's when the change happened. He brought in Ravens defensive coaches. That's why I don't think Stallings really did anything. I mean, the NCAA kind of proves that. You bring in a bunch of NFL coaches, come down, and then no one can solve that defense. They're running the Ravens defense. No one can solve it. Everyone starts complaining about it. That's the problem right there. He had a pipeline of NFL coaches coming up that if he would have stayed at Michigan for like 10 years, who knows what would have happened. I mean, even when he left, Wink Martindale came down. He's like the inventor. He's a DC right now at Michigan. Like, what other program can do that? That's why, going back to the Pete Carroll example, I just think the teams in the Pac-12 were just pissed that Pete Carroll was crushing them. Right? It's only when a coach is like really crushing them and running the score up that anybody cares. Except some programs like Ohio State, they just don't care about it. That's why I don't understand. Like, why is Penn State never mad at Ohio State? They just expect to lose? It makes no sense. Like, I don't get it. They're like the whipping boy for so long. They're just like, all right, we'll take it. Chalk that up as an L, right? Except for Purdue, baby. That Purdue highlight from when, was Urban still the coach? And was it Rondale Moore had all those touchdowns? Like, that still cracks me up. And Iowa crushed them that one year. That's why everyone says anything. But Kirk Ferentz keeps speaking out, saying that Michigan did nothing wrong. And I love Kirk Ferentz, dude. He's one of my favorite coaches growing up. You know, I've always pulled for him in the Hawks. Him saying it, he knows football. So for Kirk Ferentz to come out in defense of Harbaugh, saying that it's all BS, I have to agree with Ferentz. If it was an old football coach like that was coming out and speaking out against him, but it's not. It's not. None of the NFL guys care. Even Paul Feinbaum didn't care. He's like, there's no way. Like, there's no way that Stallings had any impact on that game. And that's coming from an SEC sloppy. Right?
Yeah.
So now the big one is the ACC dates closing in. Because this kind of ties in. I think the diversification of the Big Ten is good. I hope Oregon comes in. If Michigan's not going to win the Big Ten, I hope Oregon kills everybody and just runs the table this year. Why? Because my theory that I've come up with, like I said, I explained earlier in the show, I think a lot of the Big Ten old guard are just content with being good enough to get the money. But they don't want to win national championships. That's why the ACC has more national championships every year in every sport. There's only, I saw a clip where, I think it was Penn State volleyball. One of the girls said that they were like, what's your goal? And she said, I want to win a national championship. And they're like, no one has ever said that at a press conference. And it's like, why isn't that the goal for every team? Maybe that's why the Big Ten's not winning anything. So now randomly, I'll be hoping that chick wins the national championship. Like, even Caitlin Clark is not like, oh, I want to win the national championship. It's like, nah, we'll kind of just meander around out here, and the refs will give us a ref job and we'll get screwed. And the Big Ten, again, didn't circle the wagons when she's getting ripped off with random fouls in the national championship game. The Big Ten doesn't care. They're like, we don't care if Iowa wins it. It's just like, they just don't care. So when Oregon comes in, they're floating a gigantic duck raft down the river, and they're being like, look at me, look at me. I hope they win it all. Just because I have no connection. I love that Rose Bowl song that their super fans did that one year. I love my Ducks. If they start beating Ohio State at their own game, I'll just laugh. I will just laugh. USC could come in. I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening when they realize that the Big Ten's randomly penalizing them and things. But it's so wide open that all they have to do is win the playoff. I don't care who wins the Big Ten. Michigan's 3-time champs in a row. If like some random team wins it, or if Ohio State starts winning it every year because the schedules are weird, I just don't care. Like, it's all about, I think right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the goal comes down to making the playoffs. It's going to be like the NCAA tournament. Some teams are going to their goal is to make the playoffs. And that's where I'm going with this. Some teams have a goal of like making the Final Four or Elite Eight or whatever in college football. They'll probably change the name. But right now, Florida State and Clemson, I've been playing a lot of the new college football video game and running a lot of sims to see what happens if teams leave their conference, right? If Florida State and Clemson leave, it doesn't really matter if they go to the SEC or the Big Ten. They're going to still make the playoffs at a much lower rate than if they stay in the ACC. If they leave, the teams that stay in the ACC, they still make the playoffs every year. And I think it's going to increase. They might not be making as much money, but for like a team like Virginia Tech that's been rumored to possibly follow Clemson and NC State, or Clemson and Florida State, or a team like NC State that's also rumored to follow them, if they're not getting in the Big Ten or the SEC, I'd be lying if I said it makes more sense for them to join like the Big 12. It doesn't. Yeah, you can get a little bit more money each year, but I think the exposure for your program making the playoffs, and if they win the ACC, they're most likely getting that bye. So they're already in the Elite Eight, right? So they're going to be a step ahead than what they're going to be if they were never in it. Because like these are teams that have never won anything. Like the one thing that is a joke is like they have that one rating in the game where it's like championship contending. If Florida State and Clemson leave, both Virginia Tech and NC State jump to like an A+ in championship contending because there's nothing in their way, right? Miami is kind of like an A already. So it becomes down to like Miami, NC State, Virginia Tech, teams that are like heavily investing in football. Maybe even Pitt gets a gigantic bump. UNC, if UNC leaves, I think that's going to also hurt them. And that's only going to help NC State if they end up staying in the ACC. Because I used to be for, hey, NC State should just jump. But if they can't get in the Big Ten or the SEC, I think at some point you just have to stop chasing the money. You're going to have a much better booster, NIL, enhanced, agenda? I don't know what the hell you want to call it. Fundraising, if your team's making the playoffs every year. If they go to the SEC and they're winning 3 games a year, do you think that's going to energize boosters, Matt? No. Right? We already see it with South Carolina, where it's like their goal is to maybe win like 6 games, except when Spurrier was there. And even when Spurrier was there, they couldn't turn that into a long-term success. Heck, your boys, the Florida Gators, man, they're struggling right now.
They are heavily struggling right now.
So do you think that they're going to just turn it around because they're in the SEC? No.
But I think this is where you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because I'll use Penn State as an example. Every year, is Penn State a Big Ten contending team?
Every year? Are you saying they are?
Yeah, just generally speaking. And this isn't a direct like slam on them. But going in, they're in the discussion, but realistically, are they a Big Ten contending team?
I'll be honest, this year they have to be. The splitting of getting rid of the divisions saved James Franklin. Because their schedule with no rivals is so easy, Matt. I don't think you understand how easy that schedule is. They could make the Big Ten championship game. No problem. If they don't get it this year, with the only returning quarterback coming back, I would be completely shocked. I already have Penn State fans telling me like, oh, if there's a 10-year win, it's going to be a good year. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? A 10-win year? You guys should win 10 games no matter what. Like, it's not Michigan's schedule where you're playing every top team and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. We're most likely going to lose 2 or 3 games. Hopefully it's 2, and hopefully we make the playoffs. They play West Virginia at home, Bowling Green, and Kent State. West Virginia, let's be honest, is a lower top 25 team. Penn State should beat them. Kind of like playing in Minnesota, right? Then they play Illinois, UCLA, and at USC. USC is probably their second toughest game. And USC is a bottom top 25 team. They go to Wisconsin, then they get Ohio State at home, Washington at home, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Michigan. So 3 of the top 4 teams, or 2 of the top 3 teams, I guess, because I'm counting Penn State as top 4. So Penn State's probably clearly the 4th best team. They dodge 2 of the other top teams. They only play Ohio State. And they get them at home where they play them tough. And this is a team with a lot of pressure, a ton of pressure, right? Ohio State. And they've almost beaten them the last couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State beats them because Ohio State is so focused on Michigan this year that they slip up somewhere and it makes sense for it to be Penn State. Penn State could very easily be undefeated this year. If you're being realistic, they lose to Ohio State and they lose to probably USC or maybe Washington. I don't think Washington's going to be that good. They should realistically lose 1 game and a 50-50 chance of losing at USC because it's on the road. But like USC isn't stocked with talent, and USC's weakness is defense, and Penn State does a pretty good job on offense, right? They're known for their defense. It's like USC playing Michigan. I feel pretty good. Like everyone keeps saying, oh, Michigan might drop that game. I'm like, that's the one game I kind of feel good about, right? It's like the Washington game again last year. Awesome offense, but Michigan's defense is so good, I'm not too worried. Like USC's been struggling with Utah. Penn State and Michigan are both better Utahs. Easy 11 wins, Matt.
Well, and this is kind of why I posed that initially, because I think even when you look at the ACC, take Florida State and Clemson out, are any of those other remaining teams a championship caliber team? No. So even if you get to one of those top 4 spots and you coast into the Elite 8 and you just get your teeth kicked in the first round, are you really gaining anything? It's the same, like those moral victories can only get you so far. I feel like that's kind of like within a conference, you have, like in the ACC, you have your Florida State and Clemson. In the Big Ten, you have your Ohio State and Michigan that are typically going to run the table. I mean, even in the SEC, I mean, we're going to see this year, but traditionally in recent memory, it's been Alabama and Georgia that they're consistently playing for, and when they make it, if it's not the other team, whoever they're playing ends up getting smacked. You know, there's very few exceptions to that. And I think this is the next step in that process of looking at, are you content on just saying, yeah, we made the playoffs, we got beat down by 90, but we were there, we had a chance. You have a really limited window, and then when you factor in that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to have an extra $50 million a school, that really puts you at a disadvantage when it comes to facilities, when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to NIL. There's all those additional factors that not having access to that extra money really puts you in a bad spot. So, I mean, it's looking at it like, if you're Clemson and Florida State, you have to be trying to claw your way into the SEC or Big Ten just to try to narrow that gap, because at least you're going to level the playing field to a certain extent by still having access to a similar stockpile of money. And if you're sharing money within the conference, then go ahead and you're going to guarantee at least 2, if not 3 teams in. That's more revenue coming into your pocket.
But see, I'm looking at it from the perspective of yeah, you might lose in the playoffs, but your prestige is going up. And over time, your recruits are going to go up. It's like the Boise State effect, where they went on their run. They beat Oklahoma, right? In like what year was that? 06, 07 or something. They were hanging around till 2013 or so, right? Was that when the TCU year when they were like close with Nevada? Maybe Kurt Kaepernick, wasn't he around there somewhere, like 2011? Like they went on their run and they were able to compete because you can beat the top dogs. The idea that they're winning the ACC, they're not going to play the Bamas and the Georgias because they're going to get the bye. They're going to be playing a lower ranked team that they can beat because we see it every year. They might play a Penn State. They can easily beat them. I don't care. Like a Pitt can beat Penn State. We've seen it. So if Pitt wins the ACC and they match up against a Penn State or similar team that they can give fits to, then Pitt gets a playoff win. And then they keep talking about, well, Pitt's pretty good in the ACC. Like, hey, if you're going to play in the ACC, like the big conferences don't want you, come play at Pitt. And then the other key factor that I think a lot of people forget, the portal. The portal single-handedly saved Harbaugh. Because when the portal came around after COVID, right? I think it was after COVID. He went from getting 10 dudes drafted like every year and then not reloading with 5 stars like Georgia or Bama. And then guess what? He could transfer in all Pac-12 linemen. Oh, hey, you were all Pac-12 at Arizona State. Come on in, dog. Hey, you were all defensive player of the year for like UMass. Come on in, play cornerback, get interception in a big game. Tackle Wallace, dude, the guy that made the tackle in the Alabama Rose Bowl, that was a transfer from UMass. The one, I think it was their receiver down the goal line in overtime on like the 5-yard line. If he breaks that tackle, that's a touchdown. The game's tied. Michigan could lose. He held him at the 5. That was a transfer from UMass. Everyone laughs at UMass. I'm pretty sure that was the guy I'm thinking of, but I know he's made a couple big tackles like that. If Michigan can't get that transfer because the portal never showed up, they probably don't win the Rose Bowl. So now you're getting the portal in. Clemson isn't doing the portal at all for whatever reason because they're crazy. I think that was a bigger hand than NIL and Michigan's rise. I said it wouldn't happen. You can't give a team like Michigan the top player from Arizona State, the top player from UMass, the top player from Stanford, the top player from whatever. I guess it was Stanford. Yeah, Hinton's brother. Like you can't get these top linemen coming in that would have normally went to the draft, been drafted in the 5th round. Instead, they come to Michigan and they're mercenaries for a year and they play in the most dominant run game in the country. Which lineman wouldn't want to do that and then get drafted anyway in a higher slot than what they would have been? Like that's insane. Like that Michigan can just backfill on transfer cornerbacks and linemen. I mean, heck, Josiah Stewart, I think the guy, wasn't he a transfer from Coastal Carolina? I could be thinking of the wrong guy. He's the one that tackled Milroe on that last play. He blew up their lineman so bad, he wouldn't have been on the team. So you can't tell me that a Pitt or an NC State that is making the playoffs can't get some of these dudes, because Michigan had guys contributing from UMass, Coastal Carolina. Like these aren't big time transfers. They can easily start bringing those dudes in. Easily. Because the other teams are going to have so much money locked in to their recruiting class, they're not going to be able to pay. And plus the new recruiting limit, dude, isn't it 105 people on scholarship at all times now? Or something like that? I think it's 105. So you no longer can have walk-ons, I believe. So they're cutting down the roster size. It used to be 85 scholarships and you could have like 40 walk-ons or something crazy. I think the hard limit's either 105 or 115 now. So you're going to have less bodies and everyone has to be on scholarship. So you can kind of fill in with transfer or whatever. I think up to 35 new players a year. Where before, I said it, you could sign 25 high schoolers and Harbaugh was like bringing in 10 transfers a year. And I said, like, it's crazy that other teams aren't doing the maximum like Harbaugh's doing, because you're bringing in fresh bodies that played the game. These 10 dudes are coming in. They're 22 years old already. You're not having to give them a year to bulk up because they weigh 160 pounds. And they could get tackled in like a flag game and break their leg. Like, That's like Clemson, man. I don't understand it. Why would Dabo not want to do that? Why not take a guy from Charlotte? Why not take a guy from wherever? Bring these dudes in and compete, because that's where I think Clemson's fallen behind. I see a lot of Clemson fans complaining about Florida State taking transfers, when why not you just take them yourself? Why not?
I mean, the portal would have made our rebuild go so much longer, and it would have been so much more challenging.
Here's the reverse, Matt. Wake Forest had all those transfers leave. If they had been making the playoffs, do you think they would have transferred?
No.
Why the hell would Kenneth Grant have transferred to Michigan State if he would have been making the playoffs at Wake Forest? He never would have transferred. Never would have transferred. Sam Hartman, you're going to transfer to what, Notre Dame or whatever he went? Like, they're not going to make the playoffs maybe. Stay at home. We just made the playoffs. Wake Forest would have made the playoffs that year, right? Didn't they only have one loss? I think they were in the top 12. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to go back and look. Pitt beat them, didn't they? But like, that whole team then transferred out. If the ACC is making the playoffs in the expanded playoff, those guys aren't transferring. I think it's only going to help strengthen their programs. Because you put all the time in, you find the diamonds in the rough, and then like I talked about Michigan cherry picking dudes. If their team's making the playoffs, Michigan's not going to be able to do that anymore. Arizona State makes the playoff. Do you think their guy's going to transfer to Michigan to make the playoffs? Like, no, they're not. Ole Miss, didn't Ohio State get Ole Miss running back? He complained about like the NIL or whatever. But if Ole Miss was like in the playoffs last year and made a deep run, you have a better chance of those guys coming back than what you do losing them to another top team that they can say like, you're going to transfer to Ohio State. They didn't even make the playoffs. They haven't even been able to beat Michigan, bro. We were just in the playoffs. Stay here. Get it done. I could be wrong, but I think we need to see the finish line. Like, we need to see other teams win the national championship that have never won it in modern times. Like, we really need a Penn State or an Ole Miss or someone to kind of step up. Or heck, Oregon has never won it. Oregon finally putting it together with NIL and the portal would be a huge step in the right direction, I think. Especially because when's the last time a West Coast team has won it? USC?
Yeah.
Heck, even the closest one was Texas in 2005, Matt. Everything else has been so far east. It's been from LSU over. There's only been 2 titles in the North in the past 30 years, and they've both been Ohio State. Someone put it together. I think they said, if you're looking at the entire map from like the past however many years, only Michigan and Ohio State each have 2 titles. Penn State had 2 in like the 80s. Notre Dame had 1 in the 80s, I think. That was their last one. Washington had a split title too, so they have 1. Colorado had 1. And then USC had a couple too, maybe. And then that's it. That's out of the Southeast. That's your list, Matt. There's like 5 teams. 6 teams. I can rattle them off. Like, how are you going to start expanding college football into those other states? Now's the time to do it. Washington could have got it done last year. I'm glad they didn't. If they win it this year, I couldn't care less. Go for it, boys. Huskies, get your job done. It would make DeBoer look like such an ass. I know it's not going to happen, but that would be funny. Like, if the Big Ten's able to start throwing the weight around and start spreading out the titles, then it gives hope for fans of Pitt, fans of NC State. Because like I said, if everyone jumps to the Big Ten and the SEC and they kind of pull away, like it seems like ESPN's wet dream for whatever reason. Why? You're going to lose the casual fans. You know how many Pitt alums we know? You think they're just going to start cheering for Penn State? I've been saying all along, there's no way they're going to start cheering for Penn State just because. So Penn State, stop choking though. I just think the goalposts will shift to like basketball, where NC State made a Final Four in basketball. It's all everyone's been talking about down here, Matt. Did they win the national championship? No. But they knew, like, yeah, we don't play with the top dogs right now. We're just happy to make the Final Four. That's what college football playoffs is going to be. You win the ACC, you get a bye. All you have to do is win one game, and you're in the Final Four. You could lose by 90. Who cares, though? You won a game. You're in the Final Four. You'll buy a Final Four t-shirt. I guarantee you if Florida State doesn't make, because they might have made the playoffs one time. If it expands and Florida State, for whatever reason, doesn't make it, in like 10 years, you'll buy a Final Four t-shirt. I guarantee you will. You'll be like, heck yeah, baby. That's why I waited. Like I'm like, people are like, you want to get a whatever the Orange Bowl Michigan played in that first year? I'm like, nah, let's see what happens. We're gonna get killed here. And then it didn't matter. You get killed. The next year you get a little bit closer. And then you win it all. And then you're buying that 3-time Big Ten champ shirt. I didn't get a 3-time Big Ten champ shirt though. I did get the national championship shirts. Randomly wearing them around just to piss people off. No one says they're cheaters to you though. So I don't even know. I've been on such a big random rant today. The ACC, from what I'm hearing, Florida State and Clemson have to make a move by I think the 15th. We're going to keep you posted on that. I would be shocked if they made a move. The ESPN contract gets locked in 2 years. Florida State's been fighting that in court. The ACC tried to get it thrown out in court. It did not get thrown out. So Florida State still has maybe a get out of jail free card, where if the court decides that Florida State didn't vote for the increase in rights or the extended rights because of whatever the fishy ACC dealings, they might not have to pay anything. In worst case scenario, they pay like what Maryland paid, $50 million or something, which in terms of like Big Ten money, if they get that bid, is nothing. And heck, if they have to wait another year, what's the big deal? What if they get added to the AAU? That would be the big thing that would shift everything. Because that's what all the media keeps saying is like, oh, they're not in the AAU. There's no way the Big Ten's going to take Florida State, but they've been close. So if they get added, then what? ESPN starts panicking? They try to shift them to the SEC with Clemson? Clemson's the one that I think has to worry. I still think the Big Ten should make a push for Notre Dame and Florida State. Make an East Coast pod with Penn State. You said they choke. We'll see how true it is if you're in the same division.
I mean, I would like that setup.
It'd be awesome. Everyone would like it except for SEC fans. They both keep saying the Big Ten won in Florida and Texas. And that's the only thing that makes sense for them to grow. Like you can do a merger with the SEC, but like then you're splitting money with more deadweights. So you have to cut the deadweights, I think. You don't make a power move like that and then keep deadweights around. But then what do? Create a new conference called like America Conference or something stupid? Because you know that's what they would do. And then it has all the top guys, and then when a team's winning 3 games a year or 1 game a year, it's not going to be sustainable. Like no one wants to be the Jets right now. You bring in Aaron Rodgers, you pay for a top NIL quarterback, he gets hurt and you're screwed again. Nah. Speaking of NFL stuff, Aiyuk is back on the board. The Niners are looking to ship him around. I don't know. Steelers are making a late push. It seemed like it was the Patriots. They had the most to give the 49ers. I don't know if he had enough sway to get out of that deal from what I've heard. I heard the Browns had the best landing for him personally, where it seemed like he wanted to go to the Browns because they already have Cooper and it might give them just enough threats to really be a contender. I mean, obviously the Browns are in the best, out of the 3 teams, the Browns are in the best position to win. So bringing them in, if Deshaun Watson can stay healthy, the Browns are an instant Super Bowl contender. If he goes to the Patriots, they're nowhere close. So it's kind of a drop for him. Steelers, there's a little bit of unknown. I'm not high on the Steelers this year. Russell Wilson's been hurt. Hasn't been at training camp or whatever. Fields has been there. Everyone's saying that Fields looks good. But we've heard that for how many years at the Bears? Oh, Fields killing it this preseason. These teams are idiots for not drafting him higher. Regular season comes around, he disappears. They win 3 games. Everyone's like, remember preseason Fields? He was awesome. That's where I think the Steelers are at right now. You're going to be sucked in by preseason Fields, Matt. 2 weeks from now, you're going to be talking all about him, right?
But you know what? It seemed like from the clips that are being posted, he's having a really good preseason. He's being the anti-Bears quarterback, and they're aligning him for success. I mean, ideally, what do you want? Do you want him just completely just throwing the ball all over the place and not hitting receivers? Like at that point, you look like an idiot for trading draft picks for him. Like you want him to compete.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to compete. I just think that we're hitting the overhyped media part where the Steelers are doing their best to kind of say that he's the guy. And I would be shocked if it's not some weird like platoon thing where Wilson's getting a lot of the play and then Fields comes in and then nothing really goes from there. But we'll see. I think if Aiyuk comes in, he's not going to change much for the Steelers. If I'm him and I'm able to kind of dictate where I'm going to go, I'm trying to go to the Browns, and we'll see what happens. It probably already happened. I looked to see before I started talking about it if he got traded anywhere. Because normally what happens, I make a prediction, it's completely wrong, and then I have to upload the show anyway. So that's where the Patriots are willing to give him the best contract. I just don't know. Do you go to the Patriots? Like, where would you pick? If you had the 3, Patriots are giving you the best terms. You probably can win with the Browns. The Steelers are probably in the middle. You probably might get a better offer from them than the Browns, but you can't really win right away, I don't think. So where would you go?
I mean, with what he's wanting, like he's wanting to restructure or renegotiate his contract to try to get that higher level money. If that's your end game, I would say probably the Browns is going to be your best bet because they're going to be the ones that are going to be willing to pay for that higher contract to get over the hump because they're in that mode of trying to put those last pieces together. Pittsburgh's not going to break the bank to sign a receiver. It's just not happening. So I think you look at Pittsburgh as a possible option, but I mean, in recent years, they haven't been a contender. It's so I think of the viable teams, I would say it seems like Cleveland's the route because New England has a new coach. The Steelers have missed the playoffs or been close to missing the playoffs, and I think that would be the spot.
That would be my pick too, the Browns. Why not? Go for the win, baby. Go for the title. You were close with the Niners. If you go to the Patriots, I mean, you're going to just become like a Tyreek Hill, right? Where the Dolphins are kind of considered being decent, but are they really a threat?
Well,
like I'm not buying Dolphins futures, bro.
But the other thing that you have to look at as well is what's the quarterback situation in New England? Like, are they gonna ride with a rookie? Like, that's a wild card.
Hey, I know a playoff winning quarterback that's available. My man Tim Tebow. They could bring him in. I don't even know what they can do. Like, what do you do? You just wait and then you draft someone, or you wait for Kirk Cousins to get. This is the Patriot move right here. Kirk Cousins is pissed. He's gonna get. They're gonna put Penix in, so Kirk Cousins is gonna look for a place to play. He goes to New England. They bring in Aiyuk. Boom. That's what if I was the Patriots, I'm gonna say, hey, come sign with us. This is our plan. We're gonna bring in Kirk Cousins because we know he's pissed with the Falcons. So we'll get you a quarterback that's gonna be decent enough to win, and he's used to playing with stud receivers. And look at all the points and stats that Jefferson put up with them. You'll be able to eat. It'll be good. Very simple. Simple pitch to him. Well, they have Drake May they drafted.
Yeah.
Like, that's a harder sell. But why not go with Kirk Cousins? He's gonna have to land somewhere. That'd be a Steelers move. They'll have a 3-headed dragon, Matt. Russell Wilson, Fields, and Kirk Cousins. That's what cracks me up. I don't know. I try to talk to some Steelers fans, and it just makes me laugh because I don't know if they're being serious or not. Like, I'd just be happy if they won 10 games, if I'm being honest. Like, you have to build. You can't bring in 2 washed up vet quarterbacks that stunk and then expect them to be like, oh, yeah, we're in. Oh, AFC North is ours. Like, the Browns and Ravens are in a such better position that it's just hard to, like, take that next logical step and not be thinking, can we make the third place or a playoffs from the third place in the AFC North? I'm starting to get tired, so I'm starting to lose it. But that's what I'm thinking. Like, can you make it from third place? And I don't know if they can. Aiyuk, to me, doesn't change anything. All it changes is my fantasy projections. Like, if he goes to the Steelers, dude, how much do you think people in our league are going to pay for him? $50? 70?
I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility, but I also don't know that I would spend that much, but having him on your team, like, I think there's going to be the option of forcing him the ball because I feel like
I hope they do get him now. I send a text to the league and be like, get your bidding fingers ready. Him and how some people draft the Steelers quarterbacks no matter what. So they're gonna have to draft both Wilson and Fields because you don't know who's gonna play, right? So you're gonna have to draft them both. Are you not?
I would say you probably have to because
Yeah,
I
what's the
don't know
play?
that. Well, I just don't know that Russell Wilson's going to stay healthy for a whole season. And I mean, when you're looking at both the quarterbacks, I feel like you're gonna. It's hard to determine in camp because Fields is showing promise in camp, but that's also understanding that you're not going to be hit the way you will come the preseason games and the regular season. So, I mean, I think you kind of have to wait a little bit, but if honestly, if Pittsburgh was able or willing to give him that bigger contract that I don't think that they're willing to, I don't think it would be a terrible fit because defensively, the Steelers are in a good spot. But the thing that's truly held them back is that they've had no offensive line play because they can't get the running game going. They get nothing going with their passing game. And it's, maybe this 2-headed monster right now of Wilson and Fields is going to be good because maybe they'll bring back that Roethlisberger style of drop back and run around for a little bit and then wait for the coverage to break down before throwing a dart.
That's what I was thinking. Now you have one extra quarterback that you can have run around. And if he gets hurt, you're like, all right, I got another one. And then if they're just nagging injuries, they can like kind of take turns getting hurt. Because that's Russell Wilson's thing. He starts hot, gets kind of banged up, and then he dives off. Like, we've all had him in fantasy, and you're like, why? What are you doing? I have to bench you now, bro. And then you're wondering who you can put in and if it's the right play because you're like, maybe he'll bounce back. He never bounces back, though. So you're like, I made the right decision. So that's what I think the Steelers are going to be with Fields. They're like, we made the right decision. We might not win any games like with Fields, but at least we're not dropping off with Wilson. We started so hot, and we see the playoff just slip away as they lose to like a 3-win team, like normal. It wasn't like the Raiders last year they lose to. It keeps them out. It's like, why? What are you doing? That's my take. Plus, I gotta be careful, man. My man Tom Brady could come back. I should draft him again in honor, like I did last year. His winning attitude helped me win the championship. I don't know if you realize that. I had to cut him in the playoffs because my team was getting injured, and I was out of IR spots. But I almost had Tom Brady the entire season last year. This year, I think what I'll do, is I'll take my budget and I should just anyone who drafts Russell Wilson, I should just bid up Fields to make sure that they don't get him. Right? Spend like $20 because I don't care. I'm convinced that I can make enough moves in the free agency wire that my draft really doesn't matter. I've had ESPN tell me that my draft is so bad like 2 years ago that should have been in last place and I won the championship. So I'm convinced that I can make the right moves throughout the year. So maybe I should only draft Michigan guys. We have enough in the league now. I should be able to fill it up. Blake, Chris Evans at the Bengals. He doesn't start at running back, but he's there. I could fill in as like a reserve. I don't know if we have enough for running backs though, because Dedon didn't get drafted. So that's a big key part. I know we have enough receivers. I get Nico, Peoples-Jones. He's still floating around somewhere. Quarterback JJ. I could fill up a whole team, I bet. Maybe I should do that. I should map out my team. The last thing I had was the Olympics. We were talking about it. The only thing I put on here, we're getting close to the end. And ESPN's medal count drives me insane because they have a pie chart. And it makes it look like China's way ahead of the United States because they have less medals, but they have more gold than what they have bronze and silver. So the gold part of their chart is bigger than the United States, but the United States just has more medals overall. And last I looked, the United States had more golds, more silvers, and more bronze than everyone else. And it made me wonder, why don't they just do like a Mario Kart where they weight the golds as like 3 points, 2 points for silver, 1 point for bronze, and then just have the rankings that way and get rid of these weird charts. Because it's not only ESPN, but ESPN has theirs on the homepage, and it's really annoying when I look at it. Because I'm like, the United States is winning every category. Why do you have this weird chart that doesn't match the data? And I did find that someone at NBC, I think Philadelphia, put it together with that chart. And it just shows that like the United States is so much better than the other countries. And I wonder if a lot of media is just like, you know how they're annoying they are? They're like, it might hurt people's feelings if we make the United States look good. Like, that's why I wonder if they do that like that, right? We can't be winners. That's rude.
But I think like I was looking at some of the different like medal totals and different things. And I think like it's really screwy how you look at how many participants there are from the different countries. Like there's some people that are sending like 30 people. And then you have the United States that has like 500 people participating in the Olympics. Like, well, yeah, I would hope that we're out medaling everyone. We have like 200% more people.
So someone tried to do it like per capita or something where they average it out. But then the data didn't load anything. So I'm going to look and see if I can find a search where it looks like if you do it by that, the small countries are all on top, like Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia. But then, like, where even are we? We're like at the bottom? No. We still have to be, we have so many medals that we still have to kind of be near the top. That's why I find it funny because we're 35th. We'd be like right in the middle. But still, like, there's nothing stopping these other countries from doing it, right? Because, like, doesn't China have more people than us?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they have more like people?
Unless it's just qualifiers, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because they have to win the regional qualifier or whatever. So it's not like they can't send more people, or maybe it's money they just don't want to pay. But like India and China both have more people than us. So I think it's good, and we should keep rubbing it in because their population's way higher too. Like they're at billions of people according to this chart, and we're at like 300 million. And so like we're close to like other countries like Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, Brazil. Like let's keep talking it up and keep smashing. Because I think a lot of people that are like, oh, the United States just has so many Olympians there. They really try to talk up like France having a good showing. And it's like, okay, yeah, France is doing pretty good. But I'm glad that we're crushing them because I don't care about France. And I watch their guys like cry and stuff. And so I like American. I think we should start trash talking more. They like took points off Simone because they said she didn't salute or whatever. Dumb. That's a Harbaugh rule, bro. They're like, we need to penalize her for something because we don't like her. What can we do? Oh, perfect. She didn't salute long enough. Knock her points off. Give her a silver. Teach her a lesson. But like China, their guys got, their swimmers got banned for like PEDs or whatever, and then they were like, nah, we don't believe that, and they let them swim. Like I don't understand the IOC. It's like insane that some of these other bigger countries are like just not doing as well. I also found it funny that like Ireland has like 4 golds because like they're so small and they're winning like wrestling and stuff. And it cracks me up because like, why not these other bigger countries? Like you can't find a wrestler that can beat this Irish girl. Like, what are you doing? Why is that a possibility? Like, why are they winning so many golds compared to some of the bigger countries that have way more people? And they should be investing more into it. But I was impressed that France has beaten Great Britain, and I think I hate Great Britain more than I hate France. So that's good. Australia started to pass them up in terms of gold. Let's hopefully they can keep that going because they're like another one kind of connected to Great Britain. They should just get their independence and be like, we're done with you guys. That's what I want. Then the Olympics can be fair for me. That's my last thought. You have anything else you want to talk about today?
No.
I know we went long because Florida State news and Michigan news kind of get us going, or at least get me going. The Michigan news. They try to talk bad on my boy Harbaugh. He said, Matt, he did not cheat. I don't know how you can disagree with that. So, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.